So if you've really wanted to get something done, like something quite serious done and dusted, and to really commit to something, this is absolutely the week to do it. This is the forecast taking you from Monday the 23rd right the way through to Sunday the 29th of March, our last week in March, our last full week in March. And it's got some really powerful aspects that I think absolutely lend themselves well to taking practical measures to be able to create some really good transformation in your life and also to value yourself more. So let's find out a little bit more. If you're new to this channel, by the way, my name's Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. My aim here is to give you a really good little rundown of the prevailing aspects. So I'm not really going to go into the minutiae of the moon. The moon moves through the entire zodiac every single month and makes every single permutation of aspect to every single one of our planets. So I'm not going to talk about the moon necessarily, unless it's a full moon, a new moon, a first quarter, last quarter. I will note when the moon changes signs, but really what I'm talking about is the planet to planet action or planet to node action, because that's where we're really seeing some change. And I'm only using the main aspects. So I'm talking about conjunctions, squares, oppositions, trines, sextiles. So let's get cracking. Let's have a look. So I've got my slides already primed. I can't do anything without my slides. I'll be absolutely lost in space without them. So this is just to give you an overview. This is the chart for Monday. I haven't set it, to any particular time. This is just the average hypothetical time of midday, I think, in the UK. So it's a hypothetical chart. It doesn't have any angles, doesn't have any houses. We're just looking at what planets are showing up where, and how they're already relating to each other. Now, before we get into this, let's just quickly understand some of the underlying energy, because all of these things that I've listed here are the exact moments, say like when Venus makes an exact conjunction to Chiron, or when there's a Saturn Cazimi, the exact moment that happens. But in truth, the planets are moving into a position and an alignment, sometimes for many days, sometimes for weeks, before they make that exact moment, and then they fade out of it as well. So yeah, it's kind of graceful, in fact. And yes, there is this moment where it's exact and where you really might feel those energies completely, and then it starts to fade away. In fact, if I was to talk about this whole kind of graceful dance of these planets coming in to move together, I think of it almost as a sort of musical symphony, because you have planets coming into aspect with each other, and then you have other planets coming into aspect with each other. And so you get not just notes, but you get chords, you get like tones and resonances, with all the different sort of planetary flavors all kind of working together. So as we start this week ahead, we've already got Pluto working very effectively with Uranus, is also working with Neptune, the Sun, and Saturn. We've also got Mercury, we've got the North Node, and we've also got Mars working with Jupiter. And we have also got Neptune, the Sun, and also Saturn working with Uranus. And you can also see we've got Venus and Chiron also coming into work together. Now, they're all working in different kinds of relationships, and these blue aspects are really showing where things are a little bit speedy, where there's less resistance, i.e. they happen more effectively. And these ones here in red are just showing where there's tension between those planets. But what I can say is with Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, it would appear that, life is really going through some significant changes. Pluto is a planet of transformation. Uranus is very much down here. Uranus is very much about change, innovation, and the chaos that comes with change. And of course, transformation and change in an aspect, a trine, and it's it has very little resistance. You know, the ideas of Pluto and Uranus to change things and transform things, they're unhindered. Nothing is really stopping them. There's nothing there's no strong force really coming up against them. And similarly, Pluto and Saturn, you know, we're going to be talking about Saturn and Pluto later, because they're going to make an exact sextile. Now, these aspects between Saturn and Pluto come around really, really infrequently. You know, the last one was in 2012, 2013. You know, and so I wrote a list actually, but I've mislaid it. But, you know, like 1952, 1953, 1976, 1977, you know, they're really well, you know, spaced out. Because, you know, Saturn takes 29 years to go around the outside of the zodiac, and Pluto well over 100 years. So, you know, the chances of these two coming into a 60-degree angle away from each other, it's so rare. And so, yeah, absolutely going to be talking about this. Pluto, in fact, let's go there now, seeing as I've already spoken about this. You know, Pluto is about transformation. Saturn likes to get very organized, and Saturn likes to build the structure, you know, make sure the framework is right. You know, Saturn is all about discipline and taking practical action. Both of them are quite power hungry, I would say. Pluto just likes to be in charge, full stop. And Saturn really likes to lord it over other people, I think. Saturn loves being a manager, you know, managing people and telling them how everything should be. So between the two of these, very strong sort of managerial, dictatorial planets, Pluto particularly being quite dictatorial. You know, it's my way or the highway. When these two come together in any kind of aspect, in fact, but in a sextile, their energies to completely transform a structure, their energies are really felt. You know, there's a much longer term perspective because they're both slow moving planets. You know, they're not in for the sprint, they're in for the marathon. In fact, they're in for something longer than a marathon, if that even exists. You know, they're absolutely dedicated, their long-term goals, very much reliable to the things that they're creating. There's a lot of dedication, a lot of endurance, a lot of perfectionism, and also a lot of judgment of anything that doesn't match up. You know, there's a very high bar here with these two planets working together. And then when you add in, you know, this very strong Uranus energy as well, you know, there is something structural making a very complete change right now. And it has to be perfect. It has to be just right. So yeah, that's a very strong influence that we're all kind of swimming in these waters of. Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. I'm guessing most people here that's watching, all we can do is work on ourselves and at things at a local level, not necessarily out in the wider picture, unless you're very powerful. And you may well be, and good for you if you are. So, you know, my question is, how in this week ahead can we use these energies to feel like we have agency, that even in a world that is turning around right now in quite surprising ways, quite shocking ways, and where structures seem to be realigned and quite radically transformed, and in many respects completely jettisoned, how can we maintain our own sense of endurance, our own sense of power and stability, our own sense of agency, our own sense of being able to take practical action? Because this is absolutely something that's coming in. In fact, Saturn and Pluto are both really strong this week. You know, we've got Saturn in a Cazimi. What that means is that's basically the Sun and Saturn coming into an exact conjunction. Now, there are conjunctions and there are exact conjunctions now with the Sun. The Sun is obviously massive, and as a planet gets close to the Sun, it is alleged to reduce in its strength. You know, it's not that it's actually reducing in strength, it's just that the Sun is so big, it's overpowering, and so that planet kind of gets ignored. It's called like under the beams of the Sun. So it gets close to the Sun, it's under the beams, it's less visible. Then it gets even closer and it's like combust, because it's so close to the Sun right now, it's just kind of eaten up in its flames. Obviously, there's a gazillion miles away from them, and they're not actually being eaten up in the sun's rays, but it actually looks like it is from our perspective on Earth. If we were to look up, it would look like those, these planets, when they come into a conjunction with the sun, that they get overpowered by the sun. And then there's this phenomenon called a Cazimi, which means heart of the sun, where the planet is seen and the sun is kind of around it, very much actually like this, planet in the middle, huge, great big sun around it. And it's almost as if the sun is highlighting it. It's like a halo effect around this planet. And it's said to have super strong it's the planet on steroids. It's all of a sudden its energy is like really hugely felt for the time that it's in the heart of the sun. And then when it leaves the heart of the sun, it's combust again. It's very close to the sun, but it's just overpowered by it. And then, as it moves further and further away from the sun, or in the case of Saturn, it's the sun that's getting closer to Saturn, moves into an exact conjunction with Saturn, and then the sun moves beyond it. So we have this sort of energy as the sun comes around the ecliptic, goes through the zodiac. It's going to make a series of conjunctions. Actually, as I'm recording this, the sun is exactly in a conjunction with Neptune. So we've got a Neptune Cazimi. Now, I really love it when planets come together. We've got Venus conjunct Chiron later on this week as well. But when planets make an exact conjunction, I think of it as a seed point, a birthing, and I always go back to conception, and I'm fascinated by birthing. I've got 3 children, and I'd like to think if I'd met my husband much earlier, we'd have a whole football team. I absolutely love conception. I think it's great. So, the seed of, you've got the sort of material of one planet and the material of other, or the themes of them, and they come together to create a new being. That's how I see it. I see that as these planets come together, this is obviously a story. This isn't really happening. This is how I interpret the energy. We get a theme of the combination of these two planets, these two energies, and it's like they're planting a seed that has those flavors. And so with this Saturn Cazimi on the 25th, the flavor of the energy of these two combined, it's like a seed to do with adulting, I would say. The sun is very much about the adult identity, and Saturn is very much parental and very much about taking responsibility. I really like a book, it's probably behind me actually, called Astrology and the Games That People Play. I've forgotten the name of the guy who wrote it. It's really amazing. It talks about transactional analysis, or he had a word for it in astrology. And this fella, I will put the name of the book. I've spoken about this book in so many different videos. In fact, this book is a bit of a life changer for me, because when I look at the moon, the sun, and Saturn, they have been tied up to different parts of transactional analysis. So the moon represents a childlike ego state. The sun represents the adult style ego state, like our identity, what it is to be in alert and in your own space, assertive, not pushy necessarily. And then the parental, that's the Saturn, that's the overarching energy of, so you could go child, adult, elder. You could use it in a sort of time sequence. The moon is the child, Saturn is the elder. And so when I see Saturn and the sun come together, we've got the energy of the parent and also maybe the awakened adult coming together. This is a very, very grown up conjunction. This is a grown up seed. This is a seed of how do we integrate being an adult, being responsible for something. How do we grow our level of responsibility in a way that works with us and that's not going to overstretch us? How do we work with the energy of, being able to carry the weight of our life and use it really perfectly? How do we transform every single lesson that we've had in our life and turn it into something great? This is deeply practical. How can we make the stuff we've gone through, our experiences, sometimes painful experiences, because if you think about Saturn, he's like the Grim Reaper in some respects, but he's showing us the limits of how far we can go and what goes on when we don't use discernment, when we don't measure, when we don't pay attention, when we're undisciplined. So in many respects, this Saturn Cazimi on the 25th could be a turning point for you. If you're ready to really think in terms of taking responsibility for something, like fully realizing where your life has led up till now, and you're ready to do something about it, the 25th to me is a very strong day, where that responsibility, grown up energy, and that desire to create a strong and a change that delivers, that can be measured, all of that energy, that's a seed point that's being launched on the 25th. So this could be a really great day to get stuff sorted. If you've got shit to sort, that's the day to do it. Wednesday the 25th. Now 4 days later, actually the same day this happens, the sun is also, this is what another reason why this is a very, very powerful day. The same day, sun goes into an exact sextile with Pluto. So, we've got the sun and we've got Saturn conjunct. We've also got the sun in an exact sextile with Pluto. So here we've got a very sort of active energy. To me, I think of sextiles as being invitations to be busy. To me, it's where there are often things offered to us, an opportunity arises, a situation occurs that is asking for us to get involved in something. And so the sun and Pluto here is showing your willingness to transform something, maybe even work with something that might be a bit scary, might be a bit ugly, might have created some fear or anxiety in you, maybe a situation where you have to kind of pull your socks up and face something that you have been unwilling to face. But on this day, you've got guts of steel and you're ready to finally look at all these patterns in your life. So this is a very strong energy. And then on the 28th, going with the sun, Saturn and Pluto theme, on the 28th, we've actually got almost like the complement, to this Cazimi. First of all, the sun sextiled Pluto, and then Saturn came exactly into that sextile with Pluto. So this is the one that I mentioned earlier that comes around really infrequently. The last time it happened was in 2012 and 2013 in that series. And so Saturn has worked his way into a sextile with Pluto. Now, as you can see here, Saturn is going to be 60 degrees ahead of Pluto. What that means is 60 degrees ago, Saturn and Pluto came together. Now, I know they didn't come together in Aquarius. They would have come together in Capricorn. This is actually taking us back to the time of when COVID, when, everything was about COVID, lockdowns and things like that, which, funnily enough, is a real kind of metaphor for what was going on. Like Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn in his own sign, in the sign of Capricorn, both of them together. I mean, there were other factors like Jupiter nearby as well, but Saturn and Pluto is really talking about absolute, complete power, legislating, enforcing, restricting, and it's very serious, and it went like super big. There would have been a lot of planning involved in something as big as that, I would assume. Don't think these things just get rolled out just off the cuff. So it's interesting, when Saturn and Pluto came together in Capricorn, there was a very strong seed that was launched back then. I would say a seed about complete power and how far power can go, and about measurements and the observance of data, for sure, because Saturn likes to reduce. I think Saturn really quite likes to depersonalize the human experience, I would say, especially this side of him that rules Aquarius really likes to depersonalize. And so now, Pluto has moved on into Aquarius, and there's this kind of internet idea that's gone so much further than when it was launched back in the early 90s. So, Pluto's in Aquarius, which is really creating a transformation socially. And now Saturn, this is their first aspect since that big conjunction. So, I'm thinking to myself, what part of that story that was, where those seeds were sown back in, when was it, 2020? What big seed was sown back then? And how has it already grown legs? How is that manifesting? And so, obviously, when we're talking about such slow moving planets, it really fits to look at the worldwide planetary picture right now. But actually, that's not where I want to go, because you can make your own decisions about that, and you can read up as much or as little as you want about stuff. There's so many different sources of information, and it's important that if you feel that you need to look at stuff, it's there. Those themes are absolutely coming back to life right now. But what's more important to me is, what have you done since this time? Because at a personal level, Pluto and Saturn coming together in the sign of Capricorn would have really registered in your chart somewhere. Wherever those degrees of Capricorn rest in your chart would absolutely have been activating a seed of your own making. When I look at my chart, I realize this part of the chart was very much in my third house, and very much about sort of like community energy. And, so many years on, 6 years on, we've got the sextile. Lots of stuff is moving forward for me in terms of that. So, what have you been starting back then? Whatever you started back then, you now got a really great opportunity to move it further. It feels like you've been on a journey of development. And so this week ahead, the last week of March, it really feels like we are all transforming. So yes, the world is changing, but you've also changed with it. And it's not always that apparent to see and make those connections. And sometimes you just need those dates of when it originally happened. So you can go, flipping heck, I can see the pattern now. So yeah. And if you can't remember what was going on there, and, if you can't make that link, my suggestion to you is, what is it you're wanting to create right now? Because this is a hugely responsible week, when endurance, structure, discipline, the need to get things right, you're in for a marathon, with dedication. You're not going to give up. This is something that you can absolutely go the distance with. You're taking yourself seriously, and it's good. I think this is really helpful. So yeah, this is massive. Now, if you've got something around, like, say, 0 to 10 degrees in the sign of Aquarius, or 0 to 10 degrees in the sign of Aries, you're going to be feeling it so much more, because, not only have you got two energies that are working together in a sextile in your own chart, but Pluto and Saturn, and let's not forget the Sun and also Neptune, are also making it ping alive right now. So it's big. Now, if you do have things in that area, if you haven't already looked, I've created a series of ascendant forecasts for the whole year ahead, from the recent equinox to the following equinox, i.e. from the 20th of March to 20th of March next year. And I do talk about the importance of 4 and 5 degrees in the air and fire signs. There's a huge pattern coming up that's going to be really hitting home hard around the end of July. And it's a massive opportunity. So what I'm really seeing here is, this week ahead is like helping you get the groundwork of what you might be expecting to move forwards fast with in July. So this is huge. This is really, really huge. And so it may well involve a lot of hard work at a steady pace, not fast. So hard, slow, engineered, decisive, committed, your dedication to your own power, your own structure, your own transformation. This is deep, and it can go really, really far. Now, let's also add in this, because I didn't mention Venus in a conjunction to Chiron. Now, this is coming up. She's already applying into this conjunction with Chiron. And, Venus is all about love, and she's about relatedness. And when she comes into a conjunction with Chiron, she might feel a bit insecure at first, because Chiron shows us where we are open and vulnerable. And, Chiron might show us where we've got something, in the recesses of our electromagnetic field, our aura, whatever, our memory banks, however you want to look at it or name it. And so as Venus comes in, to me, that's talking about our struggle from unlovable to worthy. How have you developed self-love? How have you developed a love for yourself through the pain that you've experienced? How can your self-love help to self-heal? So this really is a journey of self-love and healing. And now if we go back, let's go back again to, say, 2020, around the time of, that great big thing that we knew as the pandemic, or was known as the pandemic. So, Pluto and Saturn came in, and there was some very, very strong energy, some very strong powers. And whether you liked it or not, it felt like there was this new thing that you had to submit to. And that's likely to have brought up lots of feelings. Some people will have felt relieved and thought, whoa, there's people here who've got my back, who've already thought ahead, who've already organized how pandemics might be monitored. And there would have been people who, are shit-kicking, rebellious types that would be like, no way, no way, Jose, and all of that in between, but it was such a big thing that I think it would have had an effect on everyone in their own different ways, according to their own ideas on self-love, their own ideas on self-worth, their ideas on, is it okay to peak up and express something different or not? Do I have enough respect and love in myself to be able to speak up against something if I don't believe in it, or if I can't see or understand it? And if I want actual clearer information, is that okay or not? Do you have enough love to do that? Or, do you have so much love that you're going to commit to something because you believe it to be the most loving thing that you can do, which, I saw all of those patterns come up during that time. So I think whatever's coming up right now, and, and I do think there are echoes of that we can tune into with world events right now, this feeling of stuff being transformed around us, and many people feeling like they don't have much agency. Anywhere where you also haven't transformed that I feel unlovable to I'm actually a worthwhile individual, that's also coming up. So to me, I think this, pick a side. Is this week going to be one of your most productive and revealing weeks where you turn around a huge situation that you suddenly see in a new light, and you're going to rest, relax, restore, and help yourself, trust yourself, and say, I count, I matter. And because of this, I'm going to do this, and this? Or are you going to say, oh my God, everything is still a shit show. This has happened, that's happened, and I'm not good enough to deal with this. I can't. I really feel like this is a call to rise us up if we're ready for it. And if you're not ready, and if you're going sort of down a little bit and feeling into the sadness or the lack of agency, I really urge you to take some time to ask yourself what else is possible. If there's just some way you can get a chink of optimism into your mindset right now, I think it would be helpful, no matter what has happened. And obviously there are some absolutely terrible things happening all around the world. I wonder, even in the face of total collapse of everything that's happened, how can a chink of light come through? Because this is the week that if a chink of light comes through, we might be able to start to reclaim our agency. And that is what I think this week is all about. So I'm actually writing those words down, and I'm going to use it as a title in this video. Because I never know where this is going to go until I literally am channeling what I'm seeing here. So that's my they're my thoughts for this week ahead. If you would like to know what's going on at a deeper level, Monday to Friday, actually Sunday to Thursday, I release forecasts for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday I do a big one, which covers Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I put those in my free membership on the school platform. That's skool.com/feelgoodastrology. So if you would like to see my deeper dive, where I also talk about the exact moon, like, on Monday, the moon's going to make a conjunction to Uranus. It's also going to make a sextile to Neptune, a sextile to the sun, a sextile to Saturn. It's going to be trine Pluto. It's going to be square the North Node. I mean, it's a pretty big day, and square Mercury as well. And, I go through the charts very much like that, and you get a lot more information. So if that sounds like something, and also information about when the Cazimi hits according to your time zone, when it starts, when it's exact, when it ends, and I go right the way through the week. If that sounds like something that you would like, that extra bit of intel, then please do come aboard and join my free community on School. It's a really nice place to hang out, and we've got some really amazing and yummy people within that group. So there you go. They are my thoughts for this week ahead. Also, if you are wanting to learn to speak astrology, if I know, if you're watching this channel, you probably already know loads about astrology anyway, but if you would like to go back to the beginning, I've been running a course within my school community. It's a paid course. It's $22 a month. So it's not much. It's very affordable. And the price will go up at some point. So if you're interested, get in now and secure that price. But each week, you're invited to 2 sessions, and I do them in 2 different time zones. And each week we're looking at one particular sign, and we're looking at it really in depth. On one of the days, in a group, we will talk about the sign, like, really go through the nitty gritty by looking at the symbol, looking at the ruling planets, looking at the quadruplicity, the energy, i.e. the element, and so much more. So it's a really active and live conversation on Zoom. And then in the other meeting on the same week, we'll look at our charts and look at where that sign is showing up. So even if you don't have a planet in that sign, which house is it lighting up? Even if you don't have an angle or a cusp in it, what does that mean? And so we're learning about how to talk about astrology all together, one week after another. Right now we're on the Sagittarius week. So if you were to join, you could look at all the replays. But if you're interested in Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, join now, so you can still be part of the conversation. I'm really looking forward to it because I've got 4 planets in Sagittarius and also my North Node. So it's going to be quite a special one. So anyway, that's also there. And also, if you would like some private consultation, some private info, you'd like me to work on your chart separately, then just get in touch. My Calendly link is below, and you can book directly into my diary. So anyway, that's everything I've got for you this week. I hope it's helpful. It's a very powerful week. We can absolutely build something great for ourselves. And I've also given you some ideas on where you can get some free support, some guided learning, and also how to work with me. So lots of love. Have a good one, and catch up with you real soon. Bye for now.